Welcome to Shape the Deal. My name is Eddie Benoit. I am your host for season 2. This season, we'll talk about a very interesting topic, which is public-private partnerships, P3 structures.
What's up, everybody? This is Randall Woodfin, Mayor of Birmingham Alabama, and I'm here with Shape the Deal.
Welcome to Shape the Deal. We have an exciting new episode today, but even more so, we have an exciting guest coming straight out of Birmingham, Alabama to talk to us about public-private partnerships. The mayor himself, my good friend, the leader of Birmingham, Mayor Randall Woodfin, is here with us in our studios here in Atlanta, Georgia. Yes, in the A. Welcome to Atlanta,
my brother.
Mayor.
Hey, honored to be here.
Hey, I am really honored for you to be here so we can have this great discussion, so people could hear about all the great things you're doing.
Absolutely.
You know, I feel as though we're not only, we're friends, but we're doing business in your city. You welcomed me in your city. You've, done somersaults and backflips with your administration to welcome a developer like us out of Atlanta to work on some of these amazing projects that we've embarked on in Birmingham. So it is a pleasure to have you here today so people can hear about all the great things you're doing as you lead your city.
Hey, man, genuinely honored to be here on Shape the Deal. We got a chance, we got an opportunity to partner up, mutual acquaintance, friend, who allowed me to see not just what you wanted to do, brother, but who you are. That's something I respect and appreciate about you.
I appreciate that. Well, this is your second term.
Yes, sir.
And, you're Birmingham raised, born and bred. And actually, we'll talk a little bit more about that. It's so much material about you. Okay. But I want you to give our listeners and audience, some time to get to know a little bit more about you, your background, and why, you ran for mayor.
It's simple, man. I am born, raised in the city of Birmingham. It's home. I can't put enough emphasis on the word home because when something's home, you love it, you want it to be better, you do everything to pour into it, and you're consistent and committed to it. And that's how I see what I do as mayor. Stepping back, growing up in a big home, 4 generations in my household, my great-grandmother and mother, what they taught me, what they instilled in me about listening, helping others, not judging, and just doing everything you can to make a place, a situation, or a person better. That's been instilled in me since childhood. And then I, left home, came actually over to Atlanta for a brief stint. Went to college on a small little college on a red clay hill called Morehouse, and still there just reinforced what I learned from home, which is actually go back and make home better. Be a leader, serve your community. All of that combined, man, my why is simple. People in Birmingham deserve to have a good quality of life, deserve to live in neighborhoods where they feel safe. And I've literally done everything I can, probably for the last 22 years, well prior to being mayor, and doing everything very intentional to make home better.
Well, you definitely are loved in your city, but even outside your city, even the little bit of time you spent here at Morehouse, Atlanta, we embrace you, we support you big time. And, we're just proud of what you're doing. This is, second term, as a mayor. Why a second term? Because I know with all the great things you're doing, there's no way you could accomplish things that you set out to do in 1 term. I don't know if you can do it in 2 terms.
I think it's important for the audience to set the frame. Every single thing I do, it boils down to a city made up of 23 communities, 99 neighborhoods. Birmingham, Alabama is only as strong as its lowest quality of life neighborhood. So imagine, if you would, this neighborhood where a mother or a grandmother lives. She walks out onto her front porch. She looks to her right. There's a burned out, dilapidated structure that's been sitting here for years. Looks to her left. It's an empty lot that's been there for years. In front of her is a buckling sidewalk where her child or grandchild can't play on their bike safely on the sidewalk, or when she pulls out of her driveway to go to wherever. Street got potholes in it, so she's swerving and like just moving around just to avoid the pothole. Or for that same child or grandchild when it's time to take them down to the neighborhood park, but when they get to the park, playground didn't have adequate playground equipment or playground equipment that's safe enough to play on. So it's time to come home because they got to get there before it gets dark because the street light didn't work. But then when she gets home, she realizes it's time to feed her child or grandchild, and they live in the food desert. And then when it's time to put that same child or grandchild to sleep, they both got to fall or duck or roll out of the bed and fall on the floor because they've heard gunshots. That frame, those issues, is literally what I've been focused on. Not just removing that blighted structure here, but removing blighted structures throughout the entire city. Not just cutting that empty lot here, but going vertical with more single family homes, whether it's market or affordable. The infrastructure pieces, investing in our sidewalks so that child can play safely on that sidewalk, investing in our streets so people don't have to worry about a pothole taking out their tire, investing in our city's infrastructure and our parks so kids can play safely, partnering with our utility company, Alabama Power, so we can get more LED lights so people feel safe enough to walk at home or stay out at night, and working to fight food insecurity and fight food deserts by bringing more healthy food options to where families live in proximity where they live, as well as taking thousands of guns off the street. Turns out, Eddie, you can't do that in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years. Running for a second term because you have to finish and complete that work because here in front of her home and everywhere else, there are 98 other neighborhoods where I got to do the exact same thing.
Right. And I've seen the work at hand. You know, I've had a front row seat in Birmingham and watch you do your work, and it's phenomenal. Obviously, many people don't see that side of the task that you have at hand, the responsibilities and obligations. And when we talk about public-private partnership, which is very key, no one mayor, regardless of, your enthusiasm, your passion, your dedication, for your city, you can't do it by yourself. And your administration can't do it by itself. You really need partners. You need developers, you need investors, you need lenders that believe in what you're trying to accomplish, your goals, in order to feel the confidence to invest and commit, to your city. And so when it comes to public-private partnership, I mean, people could really model, the
Yeah.
approach that you've taken. But what is interesting, Mayor, is that everybody in your administration pretty much, is on the same page with you. It's like it's a no nonsense, and the urgency
Yeah.
is at the same level. Okay, so when we talk to you or we talk to one of your deputies, about something, by the time we get to everybody else that's in the lower management standpoint, they're ahead of the curve.
Yes, sir.
And so how do you accomplish that?
I think it's severalfold. I think the biggest thing is I acknowledge what you said, Eddie. I can't do it alone. So I believe in building a team. So I built a team, and then the people around me are smarter. Also believe that vision is important, which is an intangible. Vision is not enough. You gotta have a tangible, what I would call a detailed plan. But then you gotta have people to be in a position to execute on that plan. But that's still not enough. Values are important. We often hear the term values in the private sector or nonprofit sector, but I think running the government, having an administration and a team, we gotta have values. Those values are direct, they're simple. Customer service, efficiency, effectiveness, transparency, and accountability. The team knows that we are here for a limited time, that everything we do, we need to get to yes if we can, have a sense of urgency of doing it because if you're trying to improve people's quality of life, it's such a deficit what we inherited. You gotta move. It can't be government move too slow. It can't be I can't. It can't be no. Get to yes. And that is what you see from the team. So, you know, honing in on those values, if I'm honest with you, the team knows. Like, it's Joe Clark. We put you on the spot like you're in the bathroom, sing to him. What are our values? Remember those values. Remember we're serving people. literally putting people first. That's the movement. That's the sense of urgency you see.
Definitely. I mean, that's really interesting, that leadership approach. And a lot of people can really learn from what you're doing in Birmingham. When it comes to, just racial disparity, I mean, you've tackled that day one in your administration. I mean, you were relentless. I mean, I always view you, the mayor that's, has his Air Force Ones on, or his or Jordans on, and with a suit. He's that guy. Okay, and if he's in the crowd, you may not, unless you know he's the mayor, you may not know he's the mayor because he's walking around talking to everybody, kids, elderly, just regular folks, and people who are his guests in his city. I've watched you do it, and it's important for people to know that because that's what you do every day, and you do it not because you have to. It's part of your job. It's because you genuinely want to do it. It's never about you. Even when it's time for these speeches, you're like, look, hey, hi everybody, let my staff come up and have the opportunity to get the accolades. And so that is something, from a character standpoint, people need to understand, the person behind this mayor, position as far as who you are truly. So when we talk about racial disparity, talk about public-private partnerships, you've been really focusing on decentralizing all of this poverty and low income throughout the city of Birmingham, working with your public housing authority to actually, just tear down the old housing that is, at physical obsolescence, insecure, but also plaguing the surrounding communities because of the blight that is there. So plus developers don't want to come in. Okay, they're afraid. There's no security. There's no infrastructure, and not knowing where the city stands. But with your administration, you've been very clear. Look, we're going to replace, redevelop, but we want all the legacy residents to have the option to come back. As many of them. That was one of the first things we talked about. Is that people need to have an option to be part of this if they want to. If they want to go somewhere else, they can do that anywhere, anytime. But if we're going to redevelop where these people live, their children went to school, okay, then they need to have an opportunity to participate in that. And so, what, if you want to share with, just the audience, what kind of tools are you using at the city to stimulate more, public private partnership development, with developers like myself?
Brother, I start with the frame first. People need to know City of Birmingham is a legacy city in our country. It has a narrative, it has a story. So I don't think that story stopped in 1963. But in 2024, I want to tell you kind of who we are. We understand and stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, such as Fred Shuttlesworth, who punched through the wall, who was arrested many, many times for fighting segregation. Segregation was not isolated to busing. It was not isolated to city pools and water fountains. That segregation was also in housing, where black people lived in redline neighborhoods, where they lived in neighborhoods where they were surrounded by train tracks, surrounded by industry that polluted our air, in a flood zone. On top of that, they concentrated that poverty, right? And in that, public housing. Well, as that story continues, I think of the generation before me. I think of my mother, who lived in not one, but three different public housings as a child. I think of my father, who lived in Southtown public housing. I think about when my parents married, and before my brother was born, they moved into Islington public housing. Think about my aunts and my uncles who lived in Loving Village public housing and Collegeville public housing, and my grandmother who lived in Southtown. Then I was born, and where I spent the night, my aunt's house and my uncle's houses, it was all in public housing. So I'm looking at this and seeing this, and I know this not through someone else's lens, but through my own parents' experience. As a son and a nephew and a grandson, through my own family experiences. I get a chance to be mayor, and I look at what City Hall used to represent, being the face of that segregation on the Bull Connor. And now I'm the mayor, and the opportunities I can provide for families across our city. I want to be very clear. I'm unapologetically black, pro-black, and I believe in investing in supporting black community. because there was an intentionality and design to suppress black families and black communities for decades in Birmingham. Now that I'm in this seat, what is my responsibility? Who am I held accountable to? These same black families who grew up just like my parents and my grandparents. So it's a no-brainer when they're limited tax dollars. I have to use them wisely, and I have to get them to the people in most needs. Black families, black communities. A city that's literally 74% black, the fourth blackest city in America. So again, be unapologetic about it. But keep going. None of this work can be successful without genuine public-private partnerships because there are not enough tax dollars. So being in a position to say, okay, what is our plan around housing? What is our balance of market as well as affordable? And on top of that, inserting workforce. All right, you got 99 neighborhoods. You can't get to all of them at the same time. How do you be strategic in that? Then how do you go to the private sector, private developers and say, hey, we need you, we want you, come participate. When you come, what's your stance on equity? What's your model? What's your design? How does this fit community? And then let's get to work. And I don't care how much it costs. Eddie, I'm going to put the money in because the private sector is going to supercharge it to make sure black families in Birmingham, Alabama have a good quality of life. So their children, their grandchildren can feel safe, be safe, play in front yards, play in backyards, and do everything they can to take care of their families.
And again, I've experienced it. What you're saying, you one of the few mayors around the country that we've been involved with that actually truly invest in your constituency. And when I say invest, is that you take risk. You think out of the box. You didn't just go to City Hall and just look at the status quo and say, well, this is how we've always done it, and this is the policy. I mean, when you take that box, I was telling our mutual friend Dell, I said, Mayor Woodfin, it starts with just a regular square. By the time he's done with it, it's a trapezoid. Okay. And then he'll change that again. And as long as we're actually getting to the end goal. But you have to deliver. We talk. We're like, look, Eddie, if we do this, can we get it done? And I'm like, yes, as mayor, we can get it done. And that's what's needed in these administrations. So it's important for other mayors, throughout the country to see what you're doing and use that, as a model. Is that these days, public-private partnership deals cannot get done without creativity, without risk, without investment from the municipality, from the administration, from your leadership. Yes, sir. In these cities, or else they're just dead on arrival.
Well, look, to your point, a couple of things. Before I became mayor, I studied literally the best cities in America. And that's an interesting words, right. Best cities. But I looked at quality of life, I looked at growth, I looked at jobs, I looked at housing. And the consistency, Eddie, before I became mayor that I found was quite simple. It wasn't the government in isolation doing everything. It was this dance between public sector, private sector, for-profit, non-profit, all being at the table. It turns out that there are more solutions than there are problems. You just got to convene and have everybody at the table to supercharge making sure those solutions work. So when I became mayor, I kept going on the studying part, nerded out. And then I was like, cool, I'm gonna go steal, I'm gonna go borrow, kidnap, whatever it is, best practices. I'm gonna bring it to Birmingham and make it tailor-made to fit what works for Birmingham. And then bring everybody to the table. I don't care if they're in the city, outside the city, your case or anybody's case. Oh, and then we're going to wrap it in equity. We're going to wrap it in supporting minority-owned, women-owned, black-owned. And that's where we are today.
And you have, and I've seen it firsthand. I mean, with a lot of these initiatives that you have in place, and as it relates to all the different developments that are going on, public-private partnerships, from a gentrification standpoint, and also NIMBYism, how are you able to fight that in the city of Birmingham?
I tell you this, people think Fighting gentrification is hard. NIMBY is harder than gentrification, bro.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people's favorite word is no. I struggle with that. But I also use my platform to remind people that support not in my backyard. Hey, if you're in this city, you know our history. And if you're in this city, it's all or none.
Yeah.
Man, I really like what Mayor Jackson said. All right, let's get deep here for a second.
Yeah.
We're in Atlanta, Georgia. 50 years ago, Mayor Jackson became the mayor of this great city. And we all know the history of what happened at the airport. And he was like, look, black developers going to be at the table, they're going to eat, they're going to participate, and they're going to get 25% of what we do here. And white developers were like, no. His response is still brilliant, man. His response is still like etched. If you are a black mayor in any city in America, this should be etched in your head. You can get 75% of this deal, or you can get 100% of nothing.
That's right. And I'll tell you, for me,
So,
that's one of the reasons why I moved to Atlanta.
so you know, figure it out. Get the yes. And I think black mayors have a responsibility in participating in the equity discussion when everything's being attacked. DEI, um, all forms of program. Man, they're being hijacked, bro. Like, we are in the middle of a hijacking. And you got to be in tune, you got to be intentional, and you cannot be scared. So, we have to create opportunity and strike the balance of here's community, here community needs. We want community growth. Community deserves more housing opportunities, affordability, again, workforce housing, and even in some cases, market as well. And at the same time, those who are participating to create this, that I want to see minority owned, I want to see black owned, and I want to see women owned participate. And those things aren't in conflict. You can do both. And that's my message to everybody. That's my message to your audience. That's my message to mayors. That's my message to those who are listening, who are other, who have capacity, but don't like to participate, don't want participation, don't want to share, don't want to build, don't want to, partner. Go somewhere else.
I get it. I definitely get it, Mayor. Um, you want to share a couple of, kind of major projects you've got going on right now in
Yeah,
Birmingham?
yeah, yeah. So look, on the housing front, um, we're blessed. Couples. One is, of course, your organization. You're about to change Southtown. To be clear, I'm most sensitive to that one than any other because I remember my childhood, my grandmother living there. My father was raised there, and unfortunately, my brother was murdered there. And so to see this notion, this opportunity to actually deconcentrate poverty and bring in this mixed use of affordable and market uh, to take care of our seniors, but to also provide opportunity for residents to come back and then for new residents. The combination of that, oh man, that's what serving is about. There's another project we're doing with an organization called NCRC, and they're working on affordable housing in the form of single family homes in various sides of town. So we've been supercharging that. And then one that's in the future that has no name, it's just a massive project is with the with the with the act that the president put in place with the ARPA funds, we set aside $10 million for affordable housing. So we're on this voyage to invest in and make affordable housing work in Birmingham. Let's remember, Birmingham today is a mid-sized city. Birmingham's past, a lot of people think the conversation stops at racism. Birmingham at its height had about 340,000 residents. So we had a serious white flight. The problem with that is you had um, this infrastructure that can house 340,000 residents, but today you only got 200,000 residents, but that infrastructure is still the same. So the amount of opportunity that exists to get rid of, alleviate, decrease, wipe away all that blight, where you had whether it was absentee landlord or slum lord that didn't take care of those properties, to get rid of and remove those distressed properties, and all of a sudden visualize a city where you can just go vertical with more single family homes, where you can go vertical with more multifamily homes that are a mix of, again, market, affordable, and workforce. That is the opportunity we have before us.
And also creating the commercial that creates the ancillary amenities for those residents, to have access to.
Look, again, the infrastructure is already there. We got 22 small business districts that exist in proximity and walking distance of community, various sides of town. So for me, it's not chicken and egg, which is not cart horse. You do them both. You do the economic development and community development, and I make my team members sit down. Economic development and community development. Here's an example. There's a project over at the Old Caraway Hospital where I was born. That is a mixed use. That will be a combine of a new amphitheater, economic development opportunities, grocery stores, but it'll also be a mix of affordable housing, market, and workforce. Combining all of that together, community development, economic development have to talk to each other. They have to co-own it and co-communicate so residents can not only live in a safe space, but be in close proximity for all the amenities they need, whether it's a barbershop, whether it's healthy food, whether it's a cleaners or anything of that nature, insert the small business that we can support and invest in.
Well, I tell you, all this work that you're doing, to me, most people don't know about it, but it was great to see that even from a federal standpoint, how it was recognized last year.
Oh yeah. Oh, I forgot the biggest deal. I'm tripping.
I got your back. I got your back, man. I got your back. Where HUD, out of hundreds of applications for choice neighborhood implementation grants within the country, that 8 were selected. And Birmingham, the city of Birmingham, Smithfield, communities
Yes, sir.
received the #1 grant for $50 million. Now, the one thing that was great about that is that even though it wasn't my project, Smithfield, but I'm in the Smithfield communities with Illington. So I get the benefit from the grant that is given to that other project by virtue of proximity.
Yes, sir.
And we will have to work together, both developers, to do something magnificent around the old Legion Field, stadium. But that following week, we had another win here in Atlanta. It was the second highest award for $40 million.
Yes, sir.
Okay, on a project that we actually are doing here in partnership with the Atlanta Housing Authority.
Congrats.
Okay, for $40 million with Bowen Homes redevelopment. That's 74-acre redevelopment. But one thing I can remember is that as I was driving down I-20 to go to the celebration, even though I wasn't a developer, but remember you asked me to come and participate because it takes all of us. You're so inclusive. And I was like, man, 2 Black mayors. Okay. And they got the $90 million, recognized by HUD out of all of these cities in the country. So this is not just lip service or just talking about things that are just pie in the sky. You're actually doing it, and in one of the most competitive environments, still scored amongst the top 8 in the country. And so people need to know that. This is why we're having this conversation.
You said it, brother. Competitive, and I'm blessed. I have an amazing team. Getting that competitive grant, that HUD Choice grant, was hard work. It was tough, but an amazing team with amazing partners. And I was like, look, it's one thing to want it. We needed to put that together, man. We, again, very aggressive. And the city of Birmingham just appreciates the opportunity to supercharge the Smithfield community made up of 3 neighborhoods, where on top of this $50 million combined public-private partnership, what we'll do, this will be an almost $290 million project, all encompassing 1,100 new rooftops, all the mixed-use development you can think of, economic development, community development. the wraparound piece, our seniors and elders, as well as families with children and childcare. This is the model. And you get to participate because Islington is literally right there on the edge of that footprint. So grateful, man.
And Islington itself easily is another 1,100 or so units
is.
that we will develop. Single family homes, affordable,
Yes.
low income, senior housing, independent living,
Yes.
and also workforce housing.
Yeah.
And so when you add the two together, it's over $600 million right there in that area,
West of Birmingham, west of downtown.
west of downtown.
Real community where residents have lived for generations. And again, Islington, I told you, my parents got married. That's the first place they lived.
Wow, that's amazing. I don't want to close out without you at least giving a little history on Smithfield as it relates to Birmingham and how the first blacks really settled in Smithfield community.
So Smithfield community, everyone, was a dividing line for the city, literally on that line of racism. The street that divided community, black, white, it's called Center Street. On one side, literally was black families, black successful families, black families who lived in single family homes, that were homeowners, that were educated. These same black families were terrorized. Legitimate domestic terrorism existed in this Smithfield footprint to the point where when Birmingham got its name, outside of those churches being home, on a per capita basis in this country related to actual houses being bombed, sticks of dynamite left under porches, on top of porches, anywhere around the house. It happened in this neighborhood and community, Smithfield. Dynamite Hill is part of that name. That's how we got that name. And so I think about mayors that have stayed there, including my predecessor. I think about black educators who made impact in Birmingham. I think about what Smithfield stood for as a beacon of hope, even in the face of domestic terrorism at the height of the civil rights movement. And fast forward to 2024 and beyond, the fact that we can make this type of investment to the tune of almost $300 million in community. Now we're talking about the next generation of black families, the next generation of homeowners, the next generation of educators and police officers and nurses and teachers and any other industry you want to name where generations can live, generations can feel safe, and family can grow. It's literally a game changer.
It is a game changer. Listen, man, this is not just public-private partnership, public finance. This is also a history lesson. Listen, we're going to wrap up, but I'd like for you to have an opportunity, to tell developers out here that you're open for business in Birmingham and that you're welcoming them, whether it's in the state of Alabama or any other state.
Yeah.
So they understand that maybe the Birmingham that they thought of yesterday is not the Birmingham of today.
Well, that's a good place to pick up. Again, I want to remind people, Birmingham didn't stop at 1963. And whatever image you have in your head doesn't match what's on the ground. 2024 and beyond, we want people to know and accept and realize that we are a progressive mid-sized city, that we're focused on quality of life of all of our residents, that it is a black mecca and that you can be successful, you can thrive, you can come there and take risks, and you will be successful. That being said, we want the private sector and black developers to know across the country, not just the Southeast, but whether you're here in Atlanta or St. Louis or in between or East Coast or West, we want people to know we're open for business, that equity is important to us, black equity is important to us. And we want you to know that you gotta be able to close the deal. You're not just giving a handout. Show us proof of concept and that you can deliver. The city of Birmingham will be at the table as a partner. Whether you're in the Southeast or as far as St. Louis or in between or the East Coast or West Coast, Birmingham, Alabama is open for business. And as long as you can have the capacity, show the capacity, willing to partner, we'll do our part as a city, make the investment.
Well, that is just phenomenal. I'm great you were able to join us today. Mayor, I know there's a lot going on. You have a lot of meetings with this ALMA conference. And again, I am just so thankful that you took the time to come and have this discussion with me about this P3 structures and all the great things that you're doing, not only just within Birmingham, but how you actually are really a mentor in different ways for other mayors out here. And for that, man, I see you as, again, my mayor in Birmingham and also a great friend.
Appreciate you, my brother.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, man.
Okay, man.
Good to be
Take
here.
care. Thank you for joining us today in this exciting new episode. You've had an opportunity to get some great insights and information from our mayor, Mayor Randall Woodfin from Birmingham, Alabama. He's actually telling you guys that he's open for business. He's doing great things. Very creative, non-fearing, hardworking, mayor in the city of Birmingham. We've actually had an opportunity to have a first row seat in working with him, his administration and team in developing our own projects with the Benoit Group. So hopefully you'll have an opportunity or take the opportunity to pursue, your own project down there and shape your own deal. So thank you for joining us during this episode, and stay tuned to the next episode on Shape the Deal.